Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. We have a lot to talk about today. I guess you can consider this another Rico report. We're here to talk about how the Washington Commanders signed defensive tackle Carl Davis. We're going to dive into who he is and why this signing may be at least somewhat significant. Also, Dan Quinn talked to Rich Eisen and explained how the Commanders plan on using Debo Samuel. We're going to dive into all of that. Also, there's this debate going around about the Washington Commanders' 3 best players on the entire roster. We're going to get into that. And then also, you have a few experts predicting that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, our 7th round running back rookie, is going to ball out in OTAs and potentially have a great season for even during the regular season and potentially the postseason as well. Again, as a rookie. Can't wait to dive into all of that. Of course, I have a fun fact for you at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. And before we get into everything, make sure you stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, and stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting all of the videos, man. And I can't wait to get to a lot of these videos I have planned for y'all, because it's not even just the Javon Kinlaw video. I have so many other videos that I've been working on for weeks. Once I finally have an entire day at home, I got y'all, man, on some of those videos. And again, like the film sessions for the rookie class as well, exclusive to channel members only. But let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. Well, first of all, before we dive into everything, I did want to let you know that we are officially exactly 100 days away from the first NFL game. Not the Commanders game, but just the official NFL regular season kickoff. We are 100 days away. And then even Commanders wise, we're 104 days until we have our season opener versus the New York Giants. So for football in general, 100 days away. For Commanders football specifically, 104 days away. So, hey, man, it's time to get excited. We're getting there. You know what I'm saying? We're in OTAs right now. It will be mandatory mini camp June 10th through 12th, and then we'll be in training camp next thing you know sometime later in July, and then it'll be preseason, and then we're right back at it. Again, just 104 days until we have our season opener against the Giants. And I mean, when you put it like that, I don't know why that actually seems like that's not that far away from me, but either way, man, I'm really excited either way, because we have so much stuff to talk about, even in the dive into practice wise and things like that. So I can't wait to see Debo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, all of those guys. So I'm not trying to fast forward to the regular season, but I'm definitely excited. Now let's go ahead and move on. So the Washington Commanders earlier today went and signed defensive tackle Carl Davis, and I just ran out of time. I wasn't able to record this video before I had to leave the house, and I was out all day, so that's why I'm pretty late reporting on it compared to a lot of other people. I just have not been home. But either way, this is a guy that shouts out to David Harrison. He brings up a good point. We thought that we probably would bring back earlier in the off season. I'm actually a little surprised that it took this long, but now we're just a couple of days ahead of the rest of the OTAs, phase 3 and all of that. So with all of that starting this week, I guess it makes sense for them to go ahead and bring them back now. But I mean, I was just shocked that we didn't already have brought them back way back when free agency first started, or even before free agency when you're re-signing guys that were on your team last year. Because speaking of, just in case if you thought, man, maybe this name sounds familiar, and why is nobody hyping this up or talking about this as if we just signed an outside free agent? Well, he isn't. He was on the Commanders last year, and we saw him quite a bit towards that ending stretch going into towards the end of the season. And he actually ended up finishing with a 64 overall grade, a 62.9 pass rush grade, and a 60.9 run defense grade, which out of all of the defensive tackles on our team, he would have been the highest graded one. Now, granted, he only played in 3 games last year. Again, so that's why nobody's really hyping this up. Oh, we just signed the next such and such. I'm just reporting this to y'all just to let y'all know that Carl Davis is back, and this is the first roster move we've made in over a week or so, maybe even longer than that. So that's the only reason we're talking about this, because this is clearly just a depth signing. He may honestly only be a practice body for the offseason. He may not even make the final 53-man roster. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all know that right now. I'm not about to clickbait y'all and make it seem like we just signed the next Aaron Donald or anything like that. But again, In the limited amount of time that he played, Pro Football Focus felt like he deserved a 64 overall grade. Just to let you know, out of everybody else on our roster that is a defensive tackle, Sheldon Day is the next highest guy with a 54.7. Javon Kinlaw last year had a 53.4. Then it's Johnny Newton with a 52.7. Then it's Deron Payne with a 51.8. And then it's Eddie Goldman with a 49.3. So this guy, Carl Davis, who we're again assuming that he'll just be a camp body more than likely. Maybe he makes a 53-man roster. We'll see. I doubt it though. But that 64th overall grade is nearly an entire 10 points worth of Pro Football Focus grade higher than any other defensive tackle on this team. So maybe there's something to that. Now, I always give y'all the disclaimer to not just always completely trust in what Pro Football Focus does with their grading system and things like that. It's a decent reference, but don't just believe it wholeheartedly. Always take it with a grain of salt. Make sure you go watch your own film. I encourage everybody to watch their own film. Even if I tell you I feel this way about a certain player, I feel like this is this player's weaknesses, strengths, this is his ceiling, his floor, and things like that. I always encourage y'all to go watch your own tape, because maybe you see it differently than I do. Maybe you're right, I'm wrong. Who knows? So I mean, even I'll reference Pro Football Focus, but I always try to make sure I let y'all know, hey, do your own research, watch your own film. But just to let you know, this guy played 14 snaps in week 13, 10 snaps week 15, and then 16 snaps in week 16. Carl Davis is one of the former Dallas Cowboys that made their way onto the roster after Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. were hired to be the Commanders' head coach and defensive coordinator last year. Davis wasn't a priority signing nor a starter, but he provided depth later in the season as the team dealt with Jonathan Allen's injury. Davis was signed to the practice squad literally 3 days after John Allen tore his pec against the Baltimore Ravens, and he was active for 3 games towards the end of the regular season, and he played during the NFC Championship game when Deron Payne was inactive. Remember, Deron Payne was not healthy enough to play in that game, so Carl Davis had to step up and play in that game as well. And Davis has had a bit of a tumultuous journey through the NFL. Shouts out to Commanders Wire Serena Burks for this right here. Only 4 of his 9 seasons have seen him appear in more than 10 games. Some of that is due to various injuries he's sustained, and some of it is due to being a practice squad member who was elevated a minimal number of times. And in 2024, for the Commanders, Davis appeared in, of course, 3 regular season games. He had recorded 4 tackles, 1 solo, and a half of a stop. As a veteran, Davis brings other qualities to the table than stats, though. He has been through a lot in this league and knows how to navigate the obstacles better than most, and he can share that knowledge with the young guys on the team and also serve as a backup if another player is injured. So that's why he's here. He's more than likely, if I had to guess right now, he'll more than likely be stowed away on the practice squad unless an injury happens, and then we got to elevate him. But when you're also looking at the rest of the defensive tackle group, I mean, once you add a guy, does that mean you're going to potentially get rid of a guy? And you already know Johnny Newton and Deron Payne are safe. I'm looking at the other guys, but I would also even say Eddie Goldman, if he decides not to retire out of nowhere again, I think he's pretty safe as well. I still don't think this changes Eddie Goldman's chances of making the roster. First of all, they signed Eddie Goldman earlier in free agency, so he was clearly the bigger priority between the two, between Eddie Goldman and Carl Davis, who we just signed today. We signed Eddie all the way back in March. We just now signed Carl Davis late May. So the Commanders were perfectly fine with Carl Davis ending up on another team, and they wouldn't have thought twice about it, but now they're bringing him in well after the draft, an entire month after the draft. And Eddie is also our nose tackle, our only nose tackle on roster, I would argue. Every other interior defensive lineman is really like a 3-tech defensive tackle type of guy, Carl Davis included. So he doesn't step on the toes of an Eddie Goldman. This roster move doesn't affect the Eddie Goldman signing, in my personal opinion, because he has his own niche that we haven't had since John Ridgeway. And even before then, you probably got to go back to the refrigerator. We haven't had a lot of true nose tackles around here, and Eddie Goldman is one of those guys. I like Carl Davis, but that's not his bag either, so we'll see. But again, this is a guy that I think will ultimately end up on the practice squad going into at least the initial 53-man roster, so let's not spend an entire video, 20 minutes talking about this guy. Shouts out to him though, rooting for him, but now to move on. Well, Dan Quinn went to the Rich Eisen show way back, like a couple of weeks ago, and he was asked about Debo Samuel, and he explained how they will use him similarly to how the 49ers used him. He said, quote, "Similar, but I wouldn't say the same. Cliff and the guys have been up extra late in the offseason, finding ways to get the ball in that man's hands. Shouts out to Commanders Nation on MSN.com. I like a lot of the things they said. They said the Washington Commanders wanted another playmaker, and one became available at a discount. General Manager Adam Peters didn't waste an opportunity to reunite with Debo Samuel, and given the reasonable price they had to pay for his services, it made sense to make a run at him. Now, they have to figure out the best way to use them. You know what I'm saying? Getting them is one battle. Learning how to use them and get the most out of them is an entirely different battle in itself. He's not getting any younger and has plenty of mileage on his legs. That's why it might not be in their best interest to give him that many touches out of the backfield as the San Francisco 49ers did in the past. We're going to dive into that. With that in mind, head coach Dan Quinn shed some light on their plans for the hybrid star. The longer version of the quote is, quote, "I would say similar, but I wouldn't say the same. That's kind of what's fun about it. You find these unique things that a player has, and man, does he have them." Cliff Kingsbury and Brian Johnson and the guys have certainly been up extra late in the offseason to finding unique ways to get the ball into that man's hands, unquote. And I'm just super excited too, because when you think about it, Josh Connolly, who you just drafted in the first round, is an offensive tackle that can catch touchdown passes and score in goal line situations in a wildcat direct snap like he did at Oregon. Like literally was given it was goal line ball snapped directly to him from the center, ran over like 2-3 people, got the touchdown. Then Jalen Lane can do everything. I mean, just last season alone, 2024. Fourth round rookie, Jalen Lane received a touchdown. Obviously, he's a wide receiver. He ran for one because he's used to, he's literally used just like Debo Samuel out of the backfield. Screens, sweeps, reverses, all of that running back type of stuff. We're going to talk about that soon, Debo Samuel-wise. And he returned a punt for a touchdown, and he threw a touchdown as well as like a quarterback on a play, on a trick play. So just like how Cliff called that super creative play where De'Ami Brown threw a wide open touchdown pass to Olamide Zaccheaus, but of course, Olamide Zaccheaus dropped it. And then you add Deebo to that mix as well. Cliff is probably staying up all night, every night, not because of the stress of trying to figure out how do we use Debo Samuel, but more so the excitement. He's probably envisioning touchdowns all night and can't even sleep because he's just so pumped up and excited. He want to get up and call a play right now. But even to go back to Debo Samuel specifically, people are really sleep on how good of a year he was actually having, or at least supposed to have, before he caught pneumonia mid-season. And I believe Cliff Kingsbury can use Debo's 2024 season as like a blueprint as to how best utilize Debo Samuel at this point in his career. With all of the mileage that he has, all of the hits that he's taken, we're talking less running back like, which Dan Quinn briefly mentioned. Like, yeah, we're going to use him similar to how the 49ers used him, but not the exact same way, because we're not going to force him to be as much of a running back for us, but that's still going to be a part of his game. He's going to be more wide receiver for the Commanders. But at the same time, the running back type of stuff is what makes him so special. So do not neglect that part of his game. Still include it, but just don't force it as much on him. And I mean, even if you're looking at his stats last year, man, first game of the season, he had 9 targets, 5 catches for 54 yards, and he had 23 yards rushing as well on 8 carries. The 49ers tried to run him to the ground, and then you could just tell after that they knew, yeah, he's not the same. Because for the rest of the year, any game that he played in, the most carries he ever got after that was 5. First game of the season, they gave him 8. You have to wait until the fourth to last game of the season for him to even get 5, and then 2 weeks after that, the second to last game of the season, to get 5 again. Everything else is 4 or less for the entire season. Pretty much half of what he got in week 1. That's crazy. So they basically saw, yeah, this running back stuff probably isn't still his bag as much as it used to be. We're still going to utilize that. We're still going to ask him to carry the ball at least a couple of times a game, but 8 times in a game, they only did that once. They never even got close to that again. But then after that, he had 8 receptions for 110 yards receiving in week 2. And then week 3, still a decent game with 58 yards. Then week 4 against the Cardinals, that was an ugly game. He only had 11 yards. Then the week after that, he had 102 yards receiving and 15 yards rushing against the Seattle Seahawks for a total of 117 yards between running and receiving. And then the next game versus Kansas City, he catches pneumonia. And then when he does finally come back, he's not himself again. But even then, he had 71 yards receiving the next game, then 62 the next game after that, and then he's just stuck in the 20s and the teens. And you could just tell that it had to be pneumonia. Then once he finally fully recovered, second to the last game of the season, he had 7 catches for 96 yards. And then I don't know what that Detroit Lions game was at the end of the season. I don't know. Maybe we could just throw that out of there. Maybe that's the outlier. But like Debo Samuel's 2024 season was nowhere near as bad as a lot of people act like it is, especially in the context of the fact that he had pneumonia. Shouts out to John Cobb. He wrote in the ESPN article, Washington's offense ranked 22nd in plays of 20 or more yards last season. To help Washington, traded for Samuel and drafted speedy receiver Jalen Lane in the 4th round. In the past 4 years, Samuel has recorded 55 such plays, 18th most in the NFL, but 23 of those occurred in 2021. So of course he's not the same like he was back in 2021, but still over time he's still been a really good receiver. However, the Commanders are banking on Samuel to have a solid year in this area. After all, his 8.8 yards after catch leads all receivers over the last 4 years. He's second over the past 2 seasons as well, so it's not like he's just completely fallen off the face of the earth. You can take a look at his overall stats and see what he's done, but over the last 2 years, he's still second in yards after the catch per catch. So he can help on underneath throws and screens in particular, both of which are key parts of Washington's attack. And then shouts out to George Carmi. He brings up a good point. I completely agree. He says some fans seem hesitant on Debo's fit in DC next season. I don't see that at all. I'm pretty bullish. He's highly motivated and fits Cliff Kingsbury's offense like a glove. He'll provide a toughness and a yak component next season. And I would also add that he's going to make Terry McLaurin so much better. It's going to make his job so much easier. Shouts out to the Sportsocracy podcast, man. Again, I love his work. You can tell that guy really watches film. He came out with a live stream earlier today, actually, and was ranking his top wide receivers. I'm not even done with the video yet. I was listening to it while I was out and about, but he got to Debo Samuel. He had, just to let you know, he had Debo Samuel above DK Metcalf at least. Like I think like 28th, something around there. But the reason he was really excited about Debo Samuel, one thing he said was that teams have to game plan against him. He said Debo Samuel may not necessarily be a top 30 pure wide receiver, but he's definitely a top 30 weapon in the NFL, even at this point in his career. We're not talking about 2021 Debo Samuel. He's doing the rankings of his top wide receivers going into the 2025 season and things like that. And he emphasized the fact that you have to game plan for Debo Samuel no matter what. And he also mentioned that this is going to be the best wide receiver 2 Terry McLaurin's ever had, or at least a weapon 2. Even if you don't consider Debo Samuel a pure wide receiver, Terry McLaurin is going to be open way more this upcoming season than he ever has been, just because no matter what you think of Debo Samuel, you literally have to game plan against him. And then shouts out to Debo Samuel too, because maybe he's been hearing some noise lately, but just I guess yesterday he had a message for his haters. He put on IG, this time I'm gonna show him get in a whole different bag. Everybody can talk it, but they ain't standing how I stand. So Debo Samuel is very motivated, and I'm super excited to see where this heads. Now moving on to the next part of this video. So Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus did an article titled Every NFL Team's Top 3 Players Entering the 2025 NFL Season. Of course, this is going to be very debate bait. You know what I'm saying? You already know a lot of people are going to start debating, because even if you look on the screen right now, you see this right here, and Pro Football Focus literally promoted this article by asking Cowboys versus Commanders, which team has the better 3-player core? First of all, me personally, as much as I love Bobby Wagner, he's not on my top 3 Commanders players. I would easily replace him with Laramie Tunsil. Bobby Wagner is a great linebacker, but he's not top 3 at his position right now today. Hall of Famer for sure. Back in his prime, easily. Arguably the best linebacker in all of football for a few years running. But as of right now, at this age, he's not the guy he used to be. He's still great. He's still better than anything we've had since London Fletcher. But I would put Laramie Tunsil. I think it's Jaden Daniels, then Laramie Tunsil, then Terry McLaurin, to be completely honest with you. Now, of course, people are going to debate this, whether it's our side, the Cowboy side, whatever you want to do. I'm not here to get into that. We could probably do that in another video. But he explained his reasoning. He said Daniels took the league by storm as a rookie, winning Pro Football Focus's Offensive Rookie of the Year award, and won the actual real one too, of course. He posted a 90.6 overall grade, 90 rushing, and an 84.7 passing, and led all quarterbacks with a 3.11 WAR out of the entire NFL. McLaurin remained a steady star and has a cumulative 3-year WAR of 1.31, seventh best among all wide receivers in the NFL. And then Wagner added yet another elite run defense season to his resume, earning a 91.2 grade, his third straight year at above 91. And if I don't get me wrong, he may have had the highest run defense grade out of all linebackers in the NFL. But shouts out to Mark Tyler, because he put this tweet out. He had like an initial tweet where he listed his top 10 players for the Commanders, and just to let you know, this is in order. Then he put out a tweet just earlier today. Then he added a superpower for each player as well. So for Jaden Daniels, he said decision making. Jaden Daniels has a lot of superpowers, but if you had to pick the thing that he's like the best at, arguably in the NFL, or at the very least, like that's his best trait in particular, decision making, I can't really argue against that. Laramie Tunsil, pass protection, elite pass protector. You can say whatever you want to say about his run blocking, but pass protection wise, he's a top 5 offensive lineman in the NFL. Forget tackle, offensive lineman. Then Terry McLaurin, 50-50 balls. I agree. Some people say speed, but I don't think Terry McLaurin is the fastest receiver. But there's an easy argument to be made that he's arguably the best 50-50 ball receiver. I've given y'all the advanced stats for the past few years now that he's always leading the NFL in contested catch rate and stuff like that. It's insane. Then Luvu, versatility. I like that a lot. I would, it's between versatility and intensity. I feel like those two similar words by the way they sound, but intensity, man, I mean, it's not a lot of people in the NFL more intense than Frankie Luvu, giving it 110% all of the time, knocking people out and things like that. Then Lattimore, press man. I can see that. I think he'll bounce back, and I can see why he would have Lattimore above a lot of the other notable names, like even like a Bobby Wagner, but that's also just assuming that Lattimore is going to bounce back and be as good as at the very least he was for the Saints before he got hurt and then got traded to us. There's Samuel Cosmi, toughness and nastiness. I can see that. I mean, you could probably, if I were to do another one, if I were to pick something different, I would probably say strength. Samuel Cosmi is arguably the strongest guard in the entire NFL. It's insane. Then Debo Samuel, of course, yards after catch, yards after contact, all of that type of stuff, man. That guy's just, you get him the ball out in open space, he's going to make something shake. Tyler Biotish, intelligence, I can see that. Top 5 center in the NFL. And then Bobby Wagner, leadership. I would also just add, his run defense is insane if I had to add another quality there. And then Zach Ertz, coverage, reading ability. I completely agree with that. Logan Paulson even mentioned that before the season even started last year. Like around this time last year, after we signed Zach Ertz, he watched the tape of him with his time with the Eagles and the Cardinals, and it's like, hey, even if he's not the same athlete that he used to be in his prime, at the very least, this is going to be a guy that's always open because he knows how to manipulate coverages. He knows how to use his own leverage and things like that. He's always going to be open. So I agree with a lot of those. And then, I mean, I guess we could dive into the order. I mean, do you think, of course, Jaden Daniels number 1. Again, I would put Tunsil and Terry 2 and 3 easily. Then we start to have the debate after that. I think Samuel Cosmi, when healthy, I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of Samuel Cosmi. I might even put him 4th. But I like Luvu, then Lattimore. I think Lattimore has the potential to be a better corner than Luvu is a linebacker, but I got to see it. And then Debo Samuel, I think he's going to ball out, man. I think he's going to impress a lot of people and may even climb up higher in this list by mid-season. Tyler Biotish makes sense. Wagner, I can see the argument for why some people would have him higher, but I'm kind of around this range. Zach Ertz, and then if you wanted to do an 11th, who would be your 11th right now? Maybe Deron Payne? I'm hoping Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is so good immediately he's one of your top 11 players, because if he is, Super Bowl, I ain't gonna lie. If Ja'Cory's good enough to become your 11th or one of your top 10 best players early in the season, we're taking off. And speaking of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I feel like this is the perfect transition here. Shouts out to Ben Standig. He has an entire article with the New York Times, aka The Athletic. It's titled The Commanders OTA Offseason Program Preview. He listed the players to watch for growth, health, attendance, depth chart jump, and other key variables for the NFC runner-ups. And so he mentioned, quote, a back-end roster player who could garner significant attention in the offseason, Ja'Cory Merritt. This wasn't necessarily a running back award. This was more so any player that's at the back end of the roster that could actually end up building up a lot of hype in the offseason going into the regular season. And so he picked running back Ja'Cory Merritt. He also said starting running back Brian Robinson Jr.'s power game doesn't lend itself to breakout moments, especially in padless practices. The fourth-year player didn't compile many late last season either. And then Austin Eckler's pass catching and swerving running style proved effective despite 2 significant concussions, but less is more with touches for the 30-year-old, especially during the offseason. So basically he's saying that Ja'Cory has a wide open path to explode onto the scene early in off-season practices, because Brian Robinson, I mean, we're out here with no pads, no real contact, so the thing that he's arguably best at, he won't even be able to show during the offseason. And Austin Eckler, again, with the concussions, him already being 30 years old, you don't want to give him too many touches anyway. So Ja'Cory has a wide open lane to ball out this offseason, and hopefully by the time we get to week 1 of the regular season, he's already a part of the game plan. I'm not saying he'll be a starting running back by week 1, but hopefully he's getting some carries versus in that season opener versus the New York Giants, which I mentioned earlier in the video is 104 days away. But then you even have B. Mitch as well. Earlier today, he said that keep an eye on Merritt. Quote, I think he's going to make some noise. I think getting him in the 7th round is a misnomer. He didn't get the play, but his place at the Shrine Bowl was a 3rd round running back, unquote. And like I said, I think if he would have stayed in college another year and would have balled out the way that I thought he definitely could have, especially say he transfers to like my Georgia Bulldogs or Ohio State or something like that, Alabama, and he has the season in 2025, if he would have stayed in college, that I believe that he could have had if he would have stayed, he's probably a 1st or 2nd round pick. I think he's that talented, so we're really lucky to get him in the 7th round. And then now moving on to the last topic, the Commanders' final preseason game is officially set. They'll play the Ravens in Landover, so it's a home preseason game at noon on Saturday, August 23rd. So now we officially know Patriots August 8th, which is in New England at 7:30 p.m. Then you have the Bengals on the 18th, that's at home in Landover, Maryland, but that's a Monday Night Football game for preseason. Like, golly, man. But that's at 8 p.m. I mean, we're so prime time. We even have prime time preseason games, man. I mean, come on, dog. And then now we officially got the update that we play the Ravens 5 days later at noon. 5 days later, that's it. So we go 10 days in between our 1st and 2nd preseason game. And then we only go 5 between the 2nd and 3rd. And it's at noon. We go from 8 p.m. on the 18th to noon on the 23rd. That's quite insane. I'm not going to lie. Shouts out to Ben Standig. He brings up a good point. Yes, the main players likely sit for the 3rd preseason game, but a short week coming off of Monday Night Football in the preseason for guys battling for a roster spot is legit woof. I mean, I'm really praying that nobody gets hurt with that trend. That 5 day, really less than 5 days again, going from 8 p.m. Monday to 5 days later at 12 p.m., I think that puts a lot of people at injury risk, especially since these guys are fighting for their lives to make an NFL roster, to become a millionaire, like to set them up for their families to be straight. Like I don't think people understand how much is on the line. And that short break, that's ugly. I don't love that, man. That's weird. That's really weird, NFL. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But now moving on, how many joint practices will we get out of this preseason? I mean, I'm predicting at least 2, because the Patriots and Ravens, their head coaches have already spoken about it. It wasn't even Dan Quinn. I mean, he spoke on it after their head coaches spoke on it first, but it was the Ravens head coach and the Patriots head coach, Mike Vrabel and John Harbaugh, out here talking about joint practices and involving the Commanders. So it looks like we're at least going to have 2. But again, home Monday night game. I don't know what's going on with the Bengals. I haven't heard anything about a joint practice there. Probably won't, though, because we could just pull up and get in Trey Hendrickson's ear and make things worse for the Bengal in their situation and attempt to get them to trade them to us and stuff like that. So they're probably going to stay as far away from us outside of just specifically the preseason game alone. We'll be all fine. We'll be okay with 2 joint practices. We used to have none, so I'm happy that we at least have 2. It'd be nice to get 3, especially since the Bengals have a couple of Georgia Bulldogs over there. But we'll see what happens, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know about everything discussed in videos. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content, of course, and for the fun fact of the day. Alfred Morris still holds the Washington single-season record for rushing entering 2023 at least. He gained 1,613 yards on the ground in 2012. That was a really magical season, man. Whew, I'll never forget that season, dog. That was my I was in college too. I was in New York for that. That season was incredible, man. That was the only season I could honestly be like really proud of as a burgundy and gold fan in my lifetime. At least since I knew it, I was at least old enough to know what was actually going on and process it. So I really hold that 2012 season near and dear to my heart. So to get a fun fact from that, hey, I'll take it. I'm tired of all of these 2022 fun facts, so I'm happy that we finally got something outside of that just alone. But shouts out to Alfred Morris, man. He was such a great guy on and off the field, man. I definitely hope he's out there having the best life possible. But yeah, of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. First of all, how do you feel about football being 100 days away and the Commanders football specifically being only 104 days away? Then also, how you feel about the Commanders signing Carl Davis? Is this nothing news? How do you feel about how the Commanders plan and how they're potentially going to use Debo Samuel? How do you feel about our top players? This is the thing I care the most about. Please let me know in the comment section if you had to rank the Commanders' top 3 players, or even if you want to go as far as the top 10 players, and then if you want to go as far as Mark Tyler and even include everybody's superpowers, I would love to see that. I'ma definitely make sure, no matter what, y'all know I'm super busy and I try to get to the comments as often as I can, but that's when I'm really gonna look for. I really want to see y'all responses there, because maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's wrong, you know what I'm saying? So I'm curious to see what y'all come up with as far as ranking and each player's superpower. And then of course, let me know how you feel about Jacory's potential to show out this off season to where maybe he can earn a decent role going into the regular season. And also let me know how you feel about the whole preseason schedule, 2 joint practices potentially coming up, and also that 5-day in between the second preseason game and the third preseason game. Am I tripping for thinking that's weird? Let me know how you feel about all of that, and of course leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.